Hello everyone, welcome to our channel. Today we will discuss about the principle of educational management. The principle of management is propounded by Henry Fayol. Basically, he was a engineer of France, and based on his management experience, he has developed few management principles, and these scientific management principles, are widely used in various sectors including educational management. So let's discuss what are the various principles of educational management. The first educational management principle is talking about the division of work. This principle of management is based on the theory that if the workers are given a specialized task or work to do, they will become skillful and more efficient in it. And if they had the broader range of the tasks, therefore the process where there is everyone has a specialized role will be an efficient one. So these principles talking about in educational management principles, you have to divide your work according to their specialization. For example, if you have 4 or 5 faculty, it is your responsibility to divide the entire course among these faculties. And how will divide these tasks based on their specialized tasks. That's why you're talking about in the most of the educational institutions, they are talking about the specialized area. For example, if a person is from prospective education or the liberal education or foundation course, he should be given only the course related to foundations. If a person is having the English methods or English PG, he should be given only English methods. Persons having the history or the physics, so he should be given the pedagogical one. So the management principle talking about no one is have a universal skills. So the task has to be divided based on their specialized skills, because when you will assign the tasks based on their specialized skills, they will execute their work more efficiently. So it is the responsibility of the management or the higher authority to identify those special area and allot those work based on their specialized skills and expertise. The second principle talking about the authority. This principle looks at the concept of the management authority. What is the authority? Authority who has the power and command, who can command direct to the subordinate. So it looks at how authority is necessary in order to ensure that managerial commands are carried out. Each and every institutions, whether it is the primary education, secondary education, the higher education, any educational institutions, we must have some rules and regulations. And executions of those and rules regulations require the authority and power, who have the duty and also the power to exercise. So in order to execute those command, in order to execute those tasks, how you have to carry out those command is important. If the manager did not have authority, then they would have lack of ability to get work carried out. So if you are assigning some tasks to the authority or a person, you should give also power to give the command. Otherwise, if only you fix the responsibility without authority, the persons will unable to carry out his own activities, because it delimits his ability to execute in a proper way. So managers should use their authority, responsibility, and ethically. And the most important thing is, it is not we are talking about only authority, but how you will execute those authority, utilizing those authority most in a most ethical way and most responsible way. You should not harass, you should not misuse your responsibility, misuse your authority and powers. The third is talking about the discipline. This principle relates to fact that discipline is needed within the organizations for it to run effectively. Any institutions or any organizations, you have some sets of principle or disciplines, and to run in organizations more effectively, you have to use more disciplinary activity, or we are talking about the disciplines has to be followed. Organizational rules, the philosophies, and the structure need to be met. Whatever the guideline has been prescribed, each and every person has to follow that. And in order to have the disciplines work, manager must be build a culture of mutual respect and motivations. And how it is possible? When we have a mutual respect and motivation for each other, you will start discriminating among your staffs. So everything should be go in a wrong directions. This is talking about the disciplines principles of the educational management. So an effective manager or effective authorities can ensure the disciplines to be maintained and rules and regulations through the mutual respect and motivations to be ensured. That is the prime, what is one of the more important principle of educational management. The next is the unity of command. There should be a clear-cut chain of command in place within the organizations. Means how the communications and command to be given, that's to be very specialized or to be very specified. For example, in any educational institutions, suppose a classroom activities or informations to be or educations to be done, so it should come from a proper channel from the principals to HOD to the classroom, rather than when we have the more than one or two command persons, so everything should be diluted. So there should be unitary direction of command, means based on the hierarchy of the organizations, the command should comes in an most appropriate way. When you have the multiple command, you will find in many organizations there are every in particularly in Indian context we are very expert in giving giving advisory, or we are giving advisory note, or we want to give advice to everyone. So when you have the multiple advisory persons, so everything will be diluted. So there should be one unitary directions. How these things to be executed? Then must be come from an appropriate command or an appropriate authority persons. Then unity of direction, that is talking about when it comes from most the employee should know exactly what instruction to be followed, because when we have it come from a particular person's, employee are able to understand what they need to do and what they have to follow. So it will be very easier for them to know what exactly they need to follow. Then unity of directions. Work should be organized in a way that means employees are working in harmony towards a shared objective or goal using shared method of procedure. Unity of direction means how effectively you are using the directions. If you are giving the direction, should specify what needs to be done, and that should not be changed frequently. So when we have a direction, there should be unitary in direction. Everything must be in an standard procedure. You should follow a standard procedure so that the employee are able to work in a most harmonious way and able to achieve those shared objective, because in any organizations the objective has to be shared among various employee, and each and every employees the objective needs to be accumulated at the organizational level, and each and every employee or the staff must follow various appropriate procedure and command and directions to achieve those goals. So the procedure of execution of work, the methods, everything must be unitary. For example, you will take an example. In today's context, what happened when you are preparing the lesson plan, you will find there is no common agreements among the faculty members, among the management, among the other person, because each and every person has their own viewpoints and their own techniques to preparing the lesson plan. So educational management telling, the educational management principle says that there should be unity in directions. So you should standardize the lesson plan format first, and then we'll discuss. First train use faculty, and then they will be execute those in the work. Then subordination, individual interest to be collaborative interest. That means in any organizations, the head of the authority have some subordinate, and the interest of the organizations as well as the whole should take precedence over the interest of any individual employee. That means each and every employee or each and every staff has their own interest. And whenever we are executing a particular organizational directions, your individual interest or individual uh, viewpoint should not be reflected. You should give first priority to your organizational goal. So whatever it is interest of the organizational whole task must be supersede the interest of the employee or the group. Because when we'll follow the interest of a particular employee, a particular group, your total procedure or total organizational goal will be diverted. So this encourages team spirits and collective mentally for all and everyone. When you follow that, when you have a common objective and collective objective, so everybody has to follow that, so that it will be easier for us to achieve the organizational goal. Because the team spirit, so it is important for a head of the authority to develop the team spirit among the employee, and that should be given in a due procedures. Next is the remunerations. So in order to motivate the student, in order to motivate your staffs, there should be fair remuneration process. That means they should be paid reasonable amount of rate so that it will encourage them. So organizations that underpay, those organizations who are paying less, so they'll struggle and quality of workers will not be fine. For example, in most of the teaching institutions, UGCs and the NCTs and NCRT, they have specified some standard qualification procedures and experience. And most of the in Odisha context, what happening, many of the institutions and many of the teachers training institutions then don't follow that. So what happened when you have such type of, when you will underpaying and procuring the unqualified untrained manpower, so that will definitely hampers your quality of education process. Then centralize. So centralization principles saying is talking about relate to whether decisions should be made centrally or in a most democratic way. Whatever decisions to be executed, you have to decide what type of decisions to be taken centrally and what to be in democratic way. For example, related to administration, related to fees, related to examination procedure must be taken centrally. But whenever you're talking about the execution of the teaching learning process, it should be in more democratic way. The students, the faculty members, the what do you talk, the teachers of your collaborative schools, when where the students are giving the teachings, so everybody should be collaboratively work together in a democratic way, so that your teaching learning process will be more effective. So from the, whether you are taking from the only top to bottom or the in a horizontal or in a vertical way, so different decisions to be making process are to be appropriate for different type of decision. So the head of the authority must be well aware about the what type of decisions to be taken at what level. So that needs to be understand. A good manager or a good authority definitely will take care about these principles of your centralization decision process, centralized decision process, and the democratic decision process. Then the scalar chain. Scalar chain principle saying that there is clear-cut chain of communication existing between employer and supervisor. There should be very clear-cut communications from the higher authority to the employee, what they need to do and what they do not to follow, or what they should not follow in the teaching learning process or any activities. So this chain should be respected, and unless PD communications is vital, in which the case of chain may be bypassed if the party is based on the party concern. For example, when you are communicating a particular information from the higher authority to the staff members, it must follow a certain chain, or from the, say for example, principal to your HOD to, you're talking about the your faculty member, senior faculty member, or your junior faculty member. So that must be follow a certain procedures, and that should be in speedy way. You should not hide any things, any information at any level. You should communication, you will communicate one information to one faculty and you will communicate the other to other faculty. So this will create discriminations. Or your teacher, when you will communicate the, when your headmasters communicate one information to one teacher and other information to other teacher, so there will be dilution of your information communication process. So there should be a very coherent and very clear cut communication between employees and your supervisor, and that should be whatever communication has been given, that must be respected by all members. So if you have any doubt or any queries in that, you should communicate to the authority, and that it gets to be rather than criticizing your higher authority. Okay. Then the order. This relate to the proper use of resources and effective deployment of structural fashion. That means how you are arranging in a order way, in a sequence way. So the resources properly used and their effective deployment in a structured fashion. Means whatever the instructions, communication, resources are to be deployed in a most structured way, in a most orderly way, in a most sequence way. For example, you will take an example. Say for example, when you are to follow preparing a thesis, so first you should use the whatever appropriate time has been allotted to the fifth semester or the sixth semester student. So you should give the proper appropriate time or sufficient time to the student, so that they will able to deliver a quality thesis. And how it should be structured? That means once it has been allotted the guide, then the concerned student must be consulted with the faculty member and his guide, his or her guide, and then it should be discussed in a most common forum, and that needs to be verified from the higher authority or from the specialized persons. And it should not be that you haphazardly prepare the thesis and putting to a dustbin. And you will find most of the 50-60% cases in most of the master's degree level are useless thesis, because we don't follow the appropriate order or sequence in the utilizing of the resources. Then equity is most important things nowadays. The manager should behave ethically towards those they manage. So whatever you are managing the things, you should behave ethically. Ethical means you should follow the moral things or moral principles. So in almost every organization in the modern day world have a written sets of policy and procedure which will outline exactly what they expected to from the staff. So things is that in an every organization must have a written policy and procedures. When any organizations or any institution they don't have the sets of written policy and procedures with respect to evaluations, with respect to the teaching calendar, with respect to your academic calendar, with respect to your student disciplines, the teacher discipline, with respect to the number of classes to be conducted, with respect to the evaluation procedure, that must be written. Your how the students should prepare their thesis, how the students should submit their assignment, everything should be in most procedural set of principles to be followed. And policy, the students discipline policies, teacher discipline policy, everything's to be written. So this is talking about this principle is important. Then stability of tenure of personals, this is most important in nowadays in most of the teacher training institutions or most of the teaching institutions. In order to ensure the quality of manpower, you should have a stability of tenure. You should have a fixed agreement for 5 years or 10 years, or a they should ensure that their job is secure. Otherwise, it is seen that there is high rate of turnover. Turnover means students, staff turnover rate means how many numbers of staff leaving the job. In most of the school and institutions, you'll find that due to the poor stability and tenures, the faculty members, teachers are leaving the job. So this is due to the benefits that come with the expect experienced staff and at the time of experience needed to train the new one, because you have not designed your facilities or the benefit based on the staff experience and the based on the new one. So you should be there should be ensuring the tenure of the persons, that whenever you are extending the benefit, come with having experienced staff and the time and the expenses needed to the new one. Because the reason being is that when a new staff is joining, you are putting lots of money, lots of time to train those staffs. So it is most important thing is that these benefits to be taken care when we are uh, making a agreement based for a making a agreement for a 5 years or a 10 years. So stability should be of staff is 10 of the staff must be ensured. That means ଆମେ ଏଇ ଜାଗାରେ କ'ଣ କହୁଛେ, ଆମେ କହୁଛେ ଯେ ଯେଉଁ ଫ୍ୟାକଲ୍ଟି ମେମ୍ବର ଯେଉଁ ଟିଚର ମାନେ ରହୁଛନ୍ତି ସ୍କୁଲ୍ସ ଏଜୁକେସନାଲ ଇନଷ୍ଟିଟ୍ୟୁସନରେ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ ଯଦି ଗୋଟେ ବର୍ଷ ପାଇଁ 11 ମାସ ପାଇଁ 10 ମାସ ପାଇଁ 3 ମାସ ପାଇଁ ଏଗ୍ରିମେଣ୍ଟ କରାଯିବ, ସୋ ଇଟ୍ ୱିଲ୍ ଡିମୋଟିଭେଟ୍, ସେମାନେ ଅଲ୍ଟରନେଟିଭ୍ ଖୋଜିବେ। ତ କ'ଣ କରାଯିବା କଥା, ଗୋଟେ ଫିକ୍ସ ଟର୍ମ ଲଙ୍ଗ ଟର୍ମ ଏଗ୍ରିମେଣ୍ଟ ଲଙ୍ଗ ଟର୍ମ ଜବ୍ ଅପରଚ୍ୟୁନିଟି ପାଇଁ ଏଗ୍ରିମେଣ୍ଟ କରିବା କଥା। So there should be clear and effective methods for filling any staff vacancy that reach. So जोटा कि staff filling time रे सेटा properly communicate करिबा कथा। Initiative. So employee that have an input as how to do the things best way are likely to feel more motivated and respected. My organizations place a great deal of emphasis on listening to the concerned staff. That means whenever the teachers or the students have their own ideas, own initiative, new idea, that must be respected. Rather than being a HOD, being a principals, you know that I am the everything, ମୁଁ ତ ହେଉଛି ସର୍ବଜ୍ଞାତା, ସେଇ ପ୍ରିନ୍ସିପଲ୍ସଟା ଫେଲ୍ ମାରେ। ମ୍ୟାନେଜମେଣ୍ଟ ପ୍ରିନ୍ସିପଲ୍ସ, those who will following the appropriate management principle, they'll invite the innovation. They takes suggestion from the students, they takes suggestion from the faculty, they take suggestion from your employee, so that the new initiatives can be came into force. तो आम जगह कौन कहे स्टूडेंट्स मानकर आइडिया, टीचर्स मानकर आइडिया, नॉन टीचिंग स्टाफ मानकर आइडिया को आम प्रॉपर्ली यूटिलाइज करबा कथा। इनिशिएटिव मीन्स इट स्टार्ट बिगिन्स फ्रॉम द पर्सन्स। सो से इनपुट नेबा द्वारा कौन होबा, हाउ इफेक्टिवली जॉब कैन बी डन, जेकोसी काम को केमती सुंदर और सरल भाव में करा विभिन्न इनपुट नहीं आम करवा कथा। रादर देन जोटा द हायर अथॉरिटी भावुची तो सेटा बेसिस कर मैनेजमेंट प्रिंसिपल सेइंग दैट दिस इज इनअप्रोप्रिएट एंड दिस विल लीड्स टू सम devastating situations or most inappropriate situation. Then the morally, last principle talking about the moral or talking about the ethical principle also. Keeping a high level of morality and team spirit is essential, a part of having the most productive organization possible. That means how you are building your team, how you motivate them, how you boosting their confidence is more important. Happy and motivated employees are far more likely to be productive and less absent. So when you are motivated, you have the motivated staff, motivated faculty members, motivated teachers, teaching staff, so they will give more importance or they will give their best for the most effective implementation of your teaching strategy. So that should be, they should be very happy, they should be motivated. It is the responsibility of the head of the organizations, of the principals and the HOD to understand the staff concern, understand the teaching and non-teaching staff concerns and student concerns. And it was observed in many research studies, it was found that when the higher authority, they don't bother about all these things, they don't build the confidence that leads to failure of those organizations. So these are the broader, what you're talking about, these are the broader educational management principles or the management principle that must be followed in any organizations. जदि क्लासटा आपको भल लगे ताको लाइक करंतु, शेयर करंतु एवं चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करंतु, जाफल कि बेल आइकन को ऑल नोटिफिकेशन आपण ऑन करंतु, जाफल कि चैनल अन्य वीडियो गुड़ाक भी आपण माने फास्ट देखिपारे। थैंक यू।